Welcome to Floatcast, coming to you today from the patio at Float HQ. I'm your host, Bryan, here again with co-founder and CEO of Faded Floater, Caleb. How you doing today, Caleb?
Great to be here, Bryan. A little breezy, but hey, we're out here floating.
I know, yeah. So, we're about 1 week away from actual float season. Looking like a really nice weekend. So, I'm gonna get the pool ready to go and get in and actually get a proper float day in. How you feeling about that?
When I looked at that Futurecast about a week ago, I saw this wind was going to pass through, and the first thing I thought was, and I got to get this thing dialed in. We got to be ready for opening day.
Yeah, exactly. So, float day, obviously a really important piece of what we do here at Faded Floater. What are the top three things that you're focused on this week as we approach that inaugural float day?
Well, it's been a little bit of a long winter, so A1, I got to get the pH levels dialed in on this body of water behind us. Certain areas of the world you don't have to worry about that if you're in an ocean or a river, but
Right.
for the swimming pool, it's got to be absolutely perfect, and then also the temperature, more importantly.
Yeah.
Nighttime lows are still a little bit low out here in the desert, so the water goes down quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I might have to run the heater overnight, but I can promise you one thing: it's going to be the perfect temperature to float.
I'm really looking forward to that. So, outside of the science, what else? What else are we really focused on this week?
Well, just earlier this weekend, I did get the refrigerator at the pool bar all dialed in because I don't want people soaking wet walking through the house.
Of course.
So
right.
yeah, we've got the beverages lined up, and then in the garage, I don't know if you saw it or not, but over in the shipping station, I've got about a dozen new pool floats, some for lounging, some for playing. A little bit of everything.
That's awesome. So, as far as the floats themselves go, I mean, what are we looking at this year? Are we looking at inner tubes? Are we doing upright floats? I mean, what was the selection this year? Kind of what went into it?
So I got a little bit of a mix of everything.
Okay.
I've got some of the classic vinyl inflatable lounging rafts.
Sure.
I've got some of those spring open with the mesh kind of water hammock type plays. I even got an inflatable jet ski out there with a water gun on front. So, a little bit for everybody.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think my personal favorite is probably the floats with the mesh. They have the upright back. Really creates a good environment for sipping, conversation, and also floating. And it's really great when there's a great game or something on too. Roll the TV out and you can sit upright and see it. That's my personal favorite. I don't know. What about you?
I think that's a great one because there's a balance of enjoying the sun and getting hot, but then also you got a little bit of submersion going on for the water to cool you down, which is always a great kind of flavor to the day, if you will.
In addition, how about music? I feel like that's a huge part of what we do. So we got the floats right. What's going into the tunes this year? I know that's a really big component of a float day.
Well, it's kind of funny because the music on a float day sets the tone and the pace for the day.
Sure.
Holistically. It's almost like a great wedding DJ. You get the right DJ at a wedding, and that thing can go it can go on for hours, and everyone's partying. Next thing you know, it's lights are coming on, and you got to go home.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing with a float day. You get the right music dialed in based on where you want to take that day. Next thing you know, the sun's setting, and then, you might be getting a midnight float at that point. So
taking off,
and
right?
we've done that.
Yeah. So, and I think going back to your point earlier, I think it is interesting because when I look at designing a float day playlist, right? When I'm really thinking about how it starts, how it grows, how it develops, and then understanding kind of like what time of day it's actually going to start, right? So if it's going to start like noon, you got to have that thing ready to cook for about 6-8 hours because the sun will go down around 7, and it's important. Like that playlist needs to be hitting exactly where it needs to be at that point to either take it to the moon or
the crescendo needs to hit at the right time. And if you are the director, of the orchestra, you need to make sure you nail the crescendo. And I mean, you've really kind of earned your stripes the last couple summers out here in the pool. With building this.
Yeah, I'll say that, I do what I can. I'm not going to manage the pool. I'm not going to put the chemicals in it, but I can certainly put together a little float day playlist. So
And then what about we got to start thinking opening float menu as well.
That's a great point.
I'm thinking opening float day first weekend is going to be first weekend of the 90s. Probably going to be like a early afternoon float start.
Yeah.
Have a nice dinner menu set up. I always kind of lean towards that butcher block play.
Right.
For those of you that aren't from Vegas, incredible butcher shop here in town called the Butcher Block. Some of the best meats, marinades, some of that stuff that makes everybody happy.
It's really fantastic. Yeah, it really is good. So I know you just had the big addition this year as far as the dining side of it goes is really the flat top. Really excited to get that thing out and cooking. And it's a great open air, poolside.
You kind of do everything with it. It's incredible. I mean, we can easily transition straight from pancakes in the morning for an early float with coffee.
Yeah.
Straight into doing Philly cheesesteaks for lunch. And then if you really want to stick with it on that red meat category, throw some ribeyes on in the evening. So
of course,
there's a lot that you can do. Really versatile. Hot dogs for kids, whatever it might be. So it's a big addition this year.
Awesome. So we got the tunes dialed in. The floats are ready to go. Menu's set. All we got left is our float cocktails. I think last year, the Models and Mick Ultra Seltzers really took the scene. What do you think this year?
Yeah, in the off season, I did spend a little bit of time in that high noon category. Started to like that. I wasn't really a fan of them when they first came out, but I could see some adoption into the cycle here. I'm also looking forward to seeing what new products that Seltzer line comes out with, the Mick Ultras. I just feel like that one's a little bit lighter, a little bit more natural flavor tasting when it hits that palate. And then quite honestly, I feel like I can drink those all day and wake up the next morning ready to float again.
I heard that. If you have a favorite float beverage out there, we'd love to hear it. Feel free to throw it in the comments. We'd love to know what all you floaters out there are drinking this season. So, that's awesome. So, ready to float. Really going to focus on those things here this week. Music, getting the fridge ready, the menu ready, floats inflated, pool ready to go. So should be a really great float weekend coming up here.
It's kind of funny, Brian. It takes me back a little bit over the years of floating, and I wasn't always prepared the way that I prepare now.
Right.
For floating, and I look at that as like a personal growth,
Well, I mean, it's intentional, right? Like you have to, like if you want to be great at anything, and we just want to be great at floating, you have to prepare, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, as far as preparation, how would you say that you've developed most?
So, can I take you back to a specific story?
Sure. Yeah, of course. So
this is probably, 15, 16 years ago. Good buddy of mine, actually, great floater. He's got some of the merch. He rocks a couple of our hats and T-shirts and stuff like that down in Phoenix.
Right on.
He invited us down during spring break, and he said, "Hey, let's go float this Salt River." I'm like, "Great, sounds like an epic scene." Never been. He had never been. We didn't really know what to expect, and on float day, we're trying to get ready, and to us, no one was really properly prepared. And this is back in the day of, remember the iPod minis?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So I had an iPod mini, and I was absolutely obsessed with the fact we had to have music on this river. But this was before really any viable...
Yeah, like Bluetooth wasn't a thing, right? Like Bluetooth speakers.
Yeah,
that whole,
especially the rechargeable Bluetooth speakers. Yeah, right. Some that are somewhat waterproof.
Okay.
I did have Bluetooth speakers that ran on AA batteries. Definitely not waterproof by any capacity. Yeah. iPod not waterproof. So I literally fished the cord into through 2 or 3 Ziploc bags. And put the iPod in the Ziploc bags and taped it all shut to try and keep that from getting wet when we're going down this river.
Sure.
And I want to say there was 8 of us that were going on this float. And we didn't want to take our own, Coleman coolers or whatever.
Okay.
So
what did you guys do?
So we went to Walmart
Okay.
And we go in and we bought 4 styrofoam coolers.
Okay.
We bought 120 beers.
Okay.
For 8 people.
And you said you weren't prepared?
A bunch of ice. And we went out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And was like, all right, well, let's start loading these coolers up.
Okay.
So fill the first cooler up. Put some ice on it. Stack the next cooler on top. Start filling that up. Stack the next one on top. Start filling that one up. As we're filling it up, there's a woman and her kid. I mean, heck, her kid's probably high school now. Maybe getting ready to go to college. They're probably starting their floating career right now. And I think this was actually maybe a life lesson for that 3-year-old at this moment. As the weight increased on these styrofoam coolers, the bottom cooler blew out.
Yeah.
And then it was like a building getting imploded in Vegas. Like the bottom blew out, and then everything just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And there was 120 beers rolling across the Walmart parking lot. This woman was standing there looking at us with complete disgust. And I'm running, chasing these beers. Everyone's running all over the place, gathering them. And she's looking at me, and she's just shaking her head. And I looked at her and I laughed, and she's like, I don't understand what's so funny. I go, well, what's funny is your 3-year-old's going to do this one day.
That's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, those things, I feel like those styrofoam coolers, because I've definitely used them before, and they are not built to sustain probably anything on top of them, let alone 3 other fully loaded styrofoam coolers.
Yeah, absolutely not. So we ended up, we had no money back then, and so we ran back in, got some more styrofoam coolers, didn't stack them, kind of reconfigured everything, went, and we floated, and there was one guy that learned a terrible lesson that day. I mean, there's a lot of stories from that day, but this one in particular, we almost had to take him to the hospital from the sunburn that he got, and we made it a very clear point to pull over and get off the river and reapply sunscreen. Well, the problem was he was the only one that wasn't drying off and reapplying.
Yep. Okay.
So he just kept spraying himself down with more sunscreen, and he would get in the river and it just washed right off, and he had no idea. And we get home, and I think he told me he was so burned he couldn't take a shower for a week.
Ugh.
Because the water hurt that bad.
Yeah.
And he was sleeping he slept with the gallon freezer bags full of ice on his body.
Yeah.
And his skin was so hot, like it was just melting.
Yeah.
Over and over all night. It was really quite something.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I empathize with that, because I mean, I must have been probably 12, 13 years old. Our family was big cruisers, right? So we'd always go down to Florida from upstate New York once a year, and we'd always go down a couple of days early.
Where'd you port out of Florida? Typically Lauderdale? Or?
Yeah, we were Lauderdale, Miami, Tampa a couple times.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we'd always go down a couple of days early, get settled. I mean, parents traveling with kids, I get it, right? So there was one day we went to Key Biscayne. We were going to go down and see a lighthouse, hang out on the beach, just get a good beach day in, right? So I'm probably 12 or 13 at this point, like pass out on the beach, right? Got my iPod in, I'm tired, right? I'm approaching those teenage sleep years, right? So wake up, I shit you not, I was purple. And we haven't even gotten onto the boat yet, right? So I am literally like crying.
Wait, you haven't even taken off on your cruise yet. You're doing a beach day before the cruise.
Exactly, yeah.
So now you're about to get on this vessel, and you're probably going to be inside your cabin on aloe.
Dude, I'll tell you, I literally had to sleep on my back, and I could not move for the first 3 nights of the cruise.
So what did you do for activities during that cruise? Did you just get room service the whole time?
I just sat and tried not to move. And the worst part is, like, if you've never been on a cruise, the minute you get on the boat, they take like 6 pictures of you, right? There's like there's like a family photo like in the port. There's a family photo like once you get on the boat.
Right.
Like there's photographers everywhere, right? It's a huge revenue stream for these cruises, right? So, like, there's probably 3 or 4 pictures of me just looking like fucking Barney. And it was awful. So, to your point, I empathize with your friend because that is not a fun place to be.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Where's Key Biscayne? Is that in the Keys?
It's Florida. It's right off the coast of Miami.
Okay.
Yeah, so real nice spot, but yeah,
that's fantastic. Well, it sounds like we've all learned some lessons along the way.
Yeah, apply sunscreen. It's yeah.
That's my favorite thing. Anytime I'm out and about, and maybe it's because I'm the ginger, right? People always come to me and they're like, "Hey, do you have any sunscreen?"
Yeah,
and the answer is always yes.
Yeah, right.
You know, because I mean, if I didn't always have a pocket full of sunscreen, I'd be classic burn victim in the ICU.
Yeah, man, we don't want that.
No, not at all. Got a big season in front of us.
I was gonna say that'll ruin a float day real quick.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know, I don't think I actually got sunburned last year. Now that I think about it,
it's because you're prepared.
Right. Every year, getting more and more prepared.
Yeah. It's taken, however many years it's taken, but
right, exactly.
We'll get there at the end. So, okay. So what else? What other things are you looking forward to this float season outside of just obviously getting everything ready to go? Anything else you're looking forward to this year?
I'm really excited. I feel like each year life keeps getting better. To be honest, and with that continuing to get better, I feel like I keep meeting more great friends.
Yeah.
So there's some new friends that got introduced this last year. And I think, getting them to embrace the float days with us, have them over and stuff like that.
Would you say that kind of embraces like kind of what the whole culture of Faded Floater is as a whole is really opening, the space and the doors to all sorts of different types of people that just enjoy having a good time?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's and sometimes, quite honestly, you do jump in with certain people a little too quick, and then you gotta kind of redact. I thought they were a floater, maybe not. Yeah. So there's some of that growing pains, but for the most part, when you find the people that embody and embrace the things that you love, what's not to get along with?
Hear that. So. Well, a lot of good things coming here this float season. Probably do several more of these floatcasts here, whether it be in the pool, on the patio, at the fire pit. I think it really just is going to depend on how it all shakes out. But, really looking forward to a great float season. So from Float HQ today, I'm Bryan. This is Caleb. We'll see you next time.
Float on.